Hey, it's me, Jetski, and today we're talking about more Sonic the Hedgehog Lost Media. Before we start, though, I will ask you to please like and sub. Now let's hop right into this. The first thing we're talking about is the Lost Angry Birds tie-in. So, to celebrate the release of Sonic Dash, Sega partnered up with Rovio, or whatever their name is, to have a collaboration with Angry Birds. This was a limited time thing and only lasted like a month or so before being taken down. Now it only exists as a couple of screenshots and nobody's actually played this in like forever. The next thing is the Lost Sonic Adventure Burger King toys. Not much is known about these. I guess they were pretty unknown. It is also unknown if they were actually like produced, if there's any prototypes out there. What we only know about these for now anyways is the screenshots of the artwork and like overall designs of the little Burger King Happy Meal toys or whatever. That's about it for the most part when it comes to something like this. It would be super cool if these could be found, but I honestly kind of doubt they will be anytime soon, just because of their supreme rarity and the fact that we didn't even know about these until like a couple years ago. I'm not even for sure how people discovered these existed, but nonetheless it is something pretty cool and an interesting piece of Sonic history. The next thing is the Lost Shadow the Hedgehog wrestling event. This may be one of the weirdest pieces of Sonic the Hedgehog Lost Media I have ever come across. Not saying I've come across a lot, but still, it's pretty weird. I mean, a Shadow the Hedgehog wrestling event. Like full-on WWE. I think it wasn't televised, but it was streamed online. It actually shares a lot in common with Smash Fest 96. If you don't know what that is, that's one of the most rare pieces of video game lost media ever to exist. Still, nonetheless, super cool. I hope it gets found one of these days. The next thing is the Sonic the Hedgehog musical. I'm gonna let that sink in real fast. The Sonic the Hedgehog musical, people. Yeah, this actually exists. It was known as Sonic in Sydney. It was shown at Sega World Sydney, hence why it was called, Sonic in Sydney. The plot is that it's a continuation of Sonic 3, where the Death Egg ends up landing in Sydney, and it's up to Sonic, Tails, and Sally Acorn, of all characters, to stop. And the only proof of this thing's actual existence is a couple screenshots and the whole soundtrack on like a CD. There's no video footage of it, none that's actually leaked, which is, a little disappointing. There's not even much to really prove outside of the CD and, like, a couple pictures of cast members with kids who watched it at the time. There's no proof other than that, and nobody's actually come forward saying they've actually seen the show and they knew what it was like. There's nothing like that. I can't comment on the songs though. Let me tell you, them songs are just peak cringe. Like, honestly, they're so bad it's not even funny. To the next one we go. The canceled port of Sonic 3D Blast for the Gamescom. Now, if you don't know what the Gamescom is, it was, funny enough, a Tiger's Electronic console. Now, if you don't remember about Tiger Electronics, I actually discussed them in the first video talking about Forgotten Lost Media relating to Sonic. They're the ones who made the Sonic Adventure one. Anyway, so they decided to make a actual, like, full-on video game console in the early 2000s to late 90s. It was not a massive success. In fact, I'd say it was a pretty big failure, but there was a lot of Sonic games planned for it. Obviously, one of the most notable ones is Sonic Jam, which is a completely butchered and almost unrelated port. I mean, honestly, it's not even a port. It's just like a very loose remake of the original 3 and, I guess, Knuckles Sonic games. There's not much really known about it other than a couple screenshots of it. It looks promising, I guess, for one of these kind of games, but there's not really much to it. It's literally just Sonic 3D Blast in black and white. However, there hasn't been a massive search or anything for it, and really nobody knows anything about it. really. The next game is a game known by Sonic and Shadow World. Sonic and Shadow World was a failed pitch for a Sonic game in the early 2000s. The game followed what Sonic and Shadow teaming up to save the world. This game, I guess, was planned to be super dark and edgy, akin to Shadow the Hedgehog, which, you know, I don't know. The plot does sound a little familiar. It sounds, in fact, I'd say it sounds, the brief synopsis anyways, sounds a lot like Shadow the Hedgehog, minus the whole playing a Sonic bit. I bet that was a bit of a, like, early version of Shadow the Hedgehog, but it is still cool to think that you would have been able to play as Sonic in this version of the game, and I rather would have had that over what we ended up getting. This game, I guess, was passed by Sega because they just didn't like the idea of a dark Sonic game. I guess a couple years later, though, they did make Shadow the Hedgehog, so maybe it was just an idea ahead of its time. I don't know. Some of these ideas are utterly ridiculous, but you have to have a little bit of respect for them, you know? They were trying. This one was just weird. There's not really much to it. There hasn't even been much seen of it, which sucks, but, you know, I would love to see more. If there was any concept art, I would love to see some. On to the next one. Now, the last one I will be talking about is actually a special one because it was left by a commenter on my previous video talking about the same subject. They had told me about a Sonic X bowling game that you could actually play on your TV. Think about those, like, Pirates of the Caribbean type things where you could, like, play a little mini game while watching the movie. I guess it was akin to that. I guess it was only ever seen on, like, TV, though, and there was no actual way to access it in the modern day, which is terrible, but it's pretty forgotten and nobody ever talks about this. I am very grateful that he actually told me about this because I had no idea about this. It's very strange. I honestly could not find a single screenshot, which sucks, but, you know, what are you gonna do? That's pretty much all I got to talk about for today. If you have any more suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. It was Amiya Jetski, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.